Hello there, everybody, and welcome to Harrah's Hoosier Park. I am Michael Chamberlain, joined by Emily Gaskin. And Emily, today we're going to talk about Kentucky Derby 148.
I'm very, very excited. Obviously, the Kentucky Derby, the Run for the Roses, something everyone gets excited about, or at least we hope everyone gets excited about. But those racing fans, it's just kind of a different time of year. It's the most wonderful time of year, if you will.
One of my favorite Christmas songs, as a matter of fact. But this particular Derby is very wide open, and it has been pretty much from the beginning of the year. I mean, there have been a couple horses that maybe you could say, well, this is the one or this is the one. But the way that this race is shaped up, I mean, you could go any way, one of 9 or 10 different ways.
Yeah, Michael, I think that's maybe what makes it so exciting this year is because, always years past, there's been one or two headliners. And I think,
Right.
A lot of the attention, a lot of the media headlines have gone to one or two horses. And this year, I feel like it's completely across the board. And, the past week, everyone giving out their Derby picks. And I feel like everybody has given me a different horse. And like you said, it's legitimate. I think,
Sure.
that you can kind of find your angle and stick with it. And I think that's what makes it so exciting. And like I said, obviously, wagering on the Kentucky Derby is exciting. But when you have a field like this that is set up like this, that I think the post positions make things interesting. And then given the talent, I think it really, really makes things interesting.
Yes, absolutely. And we should mention a field of 20. The morning line favorite is Zandon, who won the Bluegrass Stakes at Keeneland. That one is 3-1. Flavian Pratt riding for Chad Brown. The second choice is number 3, Epicenter, who is 7-2. Joel Rosario riding for Steve Asmussen, who still has not won the Derby. This, I think, is one of his best chances.
Yeah, and I agree. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. He's one of those trainers, Hall of Fame trainers, that checks all the boxes except Kentucky Derby. And I think, like you said, this is a great year for him. And and that's particularly what I love about the Derby too, is just the in-depth analysis that you get. It sets itself apart from the other races because you start talking about the ownership connections, and these horses, obviously 20 in the gate. It comes down to sheer talent and a little bit of luck. Right. But there's a lot that goes behind these horses. A lot of people that it takes to get these horses to the gate, and I think that's what's particularly so cool about the Derby, as well as that you really take a deep dive into the connections behind these horses, and that's what makes it interesting for me too. You follow these horses all year long, but then when it comes to the Derby, you really dig deep and find those owners and jockeys and trainers that their Derby history, and I think that certainly makes it interesting.
Well, and you think about it too from this perspective, as far as the owners are concerned. An owner like Godolphin, and they've tried to win this race how many times, time and time again, and they keep sending horses over here over the course of the years, and they have yet to do it. And then you get something like Double Eagle Farm with Mind That Bird,
yes,
and they win the
exactly.
Kentucky Derby. It doesn't matter how much you throw at this or how you try to attack it. If it's your Derby, it's your Derby, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, and that's what's I think also particularly interesting about handicapping is that I went back and looked at last year's Derby, and looking at the program page after the fact, it's so interesting how you can just take your different angles, and like you said, what's meant to be is will be, and there's a lot of things that go into it. We can sit here and analyze this race, but when it comes down to it, when the gate folds, it's which champion shows up on which day, which I think is worth mentioning too, Michael, is that this field, that it be wide open, it's a very, very talented field and a very, very deep field at that. We've seen a lot of great performances throughout the road to the Kentucky Derby. We've seen some brilliant performances. We've seen some disappointing performances. I think a few months ago that everyone would have had a different morning line favorite for the Kentucky Derby. And I think, you've got to talk about the talent that this field is comprised of. And I think that's what also makes it a very interesting field.
Well, and a great case in point there is Classic Causeway.
Yes.
Classic Causeway going into the Florida Derby had won the races at Tampa and was
certainly
all
the rave.
Stamped himself as the horse that was the one to beat, and then he runs terrible at Gulfstream, ends up the track, and right now he's at 30-1, and he got the post 17, by the way, which no horse has ever won from in 148 Kentucky Derbies. No horse has ever won from post 17. So keep that in mind if you're going to pick Classic Causeway. But we're going to go ahead and give you our 4 selections. I'm going to give you a play for the race as well. Just taking a look here at this field of 20, Emily, and which way did you go?
Well, I think you can go, like we said, you can go a lot of different ways. But the way that I attack this race is that, you look at it, you give it a once over, and then I kind of go back through and take a little deeper look. And to be honest with you, you try to make a case for each horse,
right.
Even starting from the rail. Mo Donegal, I think, there's you could make a serious case for this horse. But as I got into handicapping, I just kept coming back to the same horse. And so that, tells me that, hey, there's something here. And that horse is Epicenter. As I, was handicapping, like I said, he checks all the boxes. And I think that's what is particularly interesting about this horse is that, he's been steadily improving. Maybe he hasn't stolen a lot of headlines or, been the talk of the town, but he has steadily improved. And when you go back and look at this horse's past performances, I think you have to be impressed, and particularly impressed with the condition that he's in right now.
Yes, and as we mentioned, Steve Asmussen, the trainer, I thought that the races that he ran in Louisiana were outstanding. The Risen Star and the Louisiana Derby especially. The Louisiana Derby, he did not get the lead. He sat off the pace a little bit and still was able to just go right on by the horse that had the lead at that point and just pull away and win very impressively.
Yeah, and that was what I thought was maybe most impressive is, we've seen this horse on the front. We've seen him, go wire to wire. But, to be able to be rated like he was in the Louisiana Derby and looked relaxed, and that's what he's going to need. And particularly with this inside post draw, obviously, not a favorable post position here, but I don't think it necessarily hurts him after what we saw at the Louisiana Derby. I think the horse showed that he does have some versatility, and that's particularly what kind of piqued my interest. Obviously, he's got the talent, and like I said, he's been steadily improving from 2 to 3, and I think that he is coming into this race and at a point in his career that he's set up to win this race.
All right, now who do you have back of Epicenter? Why don't you go ahead and give us your top 4?
Then it really gets interesting, Michael. That's what I really like about this field. I did go to the 6. I went to Messier for my second choice here with John Velasquez in the irons, which you have to like there. Obviously, this horse, I don't think you'll find a better bred horse for the distance here. And he's one of those horses that as I've watching the works, and that's, again, what I talked about, I particularly love about the Derby is that, we see so much of these horses and you watch the works and you're just not going to find a more physically impressive specimen than this horse, in my opinion. So I've really been impressed with his works. I've been impressed with the way that he's coming into this race. Obviously, the Santa Anita Derby got ran down by his stablemate there, but I thought that was a very impressive effort for him in his own regard. And I think you draw a nice post position here for him, and obviously connections on his side as well.
Okay, so then that's your top 2. Why don't you finish out our top 4 and see who you've got, and then I'll give my top 4, and we can bandy that about for a little bit.
All right, so then I'm going to go to the 10, and you corrected me yesterday, Zandon, I believe we're saying. I was saying Zandon, but yes. We're going to go with Zandon. This horse, one of those horses, so Keeneland, near and dear to my heart. I feel like I watch every single race that goes post-road at Keeneland, and this is one of those horses that I had to do a double take. He has been impressing me, and obviously that rundown in the Bluegrass was just absolutely impressive. But, he's one of those horses that when I looked at the past performances, he was kind of one of those that I circled early. But betting a deep closer in the Kentucky Derby, it should be an oxymoron, I feel like. With the traffic issues and things like that, it just not an ideal running strategy, not an ideal running style. But you cannot discredit this horse's talent. I mean, he's a visually impressive individual, but obviously has the speed and the pedigree behind him as well. Chad Brown, Hall of Fame trainer there as well. And, here's another one that I think he's been lightly raced, 4 starts, 2 wins, and the most recent was his most impressive win, in my opinion. And that's what you want to see coming into the Kentucky Derby. You want to see a horse that's racing with a lot of confidence, and I think the post position is perfect for him. I thought it was very interesting that he was the morning line choice.
Yeah, I thought that was Epicenter's spot to have, but Zandon does get the morning line favoritism here, and you've got to have a long shot for us in the top 4 somewhere. So who's that?
So I'm going to go to Barber Road for my long shot there. First time connections here. But this was another horse that I think, he's solid. He's consistent. He kind of checks all those boxes, maybe doesn't turn a lot of heads. But, he's one of those horses that I feel like every time he gets in the gate, he tries hard, and he's got a good post position. I think the race actually sets up nicely for him. If things get interesting early, I think he's one of those horses that I think it will overachieve, what he's supposed to do. Okay. And I also like that it's the very first time the connections, all of the connections, trainer, jockey, owner, have had a horse in the Kentucky Derby. So looking for their first win, not first time in the Kentucky Derby, but looking for their first Kentucky Derby win. So I'm going to be cheering for him as well.
All right, so that's Emily's top 4. She's got it 3, 6, 10, 14. I'm going to talk about mine and some of my strategies here for a couple of minutes. We actually have the same top two, but I flipped him because I have the 6 Messier on top. There are 3 horses in this race that have Beyer speed figures of 100 or higher.
Yes.
I've used 2 of them in my first 2 positions, and they're your same top 2, but I flipped them. Messier and Epicenter are my top 2 as well. The one thing about Messier that I think is a little bit of a mark against, but it's not going to propel me to not pick him, is if you look at the horses that he's been facing in California, the fields that he's been facing, 6, 5, 4, 4, 5. This is a 20-horse field, a big field, but I think he could get himself in a position from that number 6 post position where he'll be right where he needs to be. Johnny V has won this race several times
experience
before.
On his side.
The experience is really going to help there. I think Messier is a solid top pick, and I love Empire Maker.
Yes.
I had him that Derby day when he couldn't catch Funny Side, and 5 weeks later when he won the Belmont, I made sure I was on Empire Maker again. He's one of my all-time favorites.
And that's what I mean, too, about it. He's a very visually impressive specimen. So I don't necessarily think the field size is going to hurt him because I think he can kind of muscle his way through some of those fields.
He can work his way through if he does get into any kind of an issue. Epicenter is my second choice as well. That 102 Beyer speed figure in the last race, the Louisiana Derby, at 1 mile and 3/16. Let's not forget that. That is the longest of all the prep races. It's the same distance as the Preakness. They changed that last year, and we all saw how those Louisiana horses did very well come Derby time last year. Now, after the top 2, we do go a little bit differently. My third choice is the 15 White Abarrio, Tyler Gaffleone riding for Safi Joseph Jr. This one has won twice in Florida at Gulfstream Park, was a winner in the Holy Bull, and then backed it right up with a win in the Florida Derby. I think, again, the running style really is going to put this horse in good position. Doesn't have to have the lead, doesn't have to be up front. I think this one can be well positioned to make a run when it gets down to brass tacks on Saturday. So I've given 3 horses there. 2 of them are of the favoritism variety, and White Abarrio is 10-1, so also a little bit of a lower odds. So my price horse that I like is the 16 Cyberknife, the Arkansas Derby winner, Florent Giroux, riding for Brad Cox by Gun Runner. This one did win the Arkansas Derby in very nice fashion, beating out Barber Road, your long shot pick in that race as well, but did get a couple of wins there in Arkansas. And at the fairgrounds, having won an optional claimer after really not running well in the Lecomte at all. The only bad race on the docket for Cyberknife was that Lecomte Stakes down there in Louisiana. So my top 4 are 6, 3, 15, 16.
And I'm going to put you on the spot. You're talking about Cyberknife there. Gunrunner, I believe you finished 3rd in the 2016 Kentucky Derby for Asmussen.
Yes, I think that was Curlin and Gunrunner, I think, are the closest one Asmussen have had. They both finished 3rd.
Yeah, so he's sired by a Gunrunner there. And out of a Flower Alley mare. But, Cyberknife was one of those that, I circled quite a bit as well. But he's another one that I hasn't stolen a lot of headlines. I think he could fly under the radar. I think that's a good pick. Like you said, talking about price there, he's 20-1. It'll be interesting to see what this horse is come post time.
Yeah, I think because I know I've been seeing on some Twitter handles and everything, people are like, what Cyberknife is looking really good. And I don't necessarily know if 20-1 is going to be the number, but I still think you're going to get a very good value on him.
Agreed.
To be sure. So as far as a play for the race, I did put
I was just going to ask you, so, the Derby always makes it interesting.
And I mentioned there are 3 horses with Beyer figures of 100 and above.
Yep.
The one I didn't use in the top 4 picks is number 12, Taba. Now, Taba has done it twice, but Taba has only started twice. So that is a very inexperienced horse to be in this race.
In the biggest race of the year.
And granted, we talked about Johnny Velasquez with his experience. Mike Smith has all the experience in the world, having won with Giacomo and Justify. I believe he was on Justify as well. So Mike Smith knows how to win the Kentucky Derby. I think that this horse definitely needs to be part of it, but that only having 2 starts previously really is a red flag to me.
I'm right there with you. That's the exact same reason. You can take nothing away from this horse's athletic ability, from his talent. But, when you're talking, and that's what we talked about, earlier at the top of this program, is that there's so much that goes into this. And the Derby, there are so many other factors, whether it be field size, crowd size, all of those things. And I'm right there with you. And, the horse did not race as a 2-year-old, right?
Just those 2 starts, going one in March, one in April, and that's it. And, so that curse of Apollo, that
exactly.
one horse has done it, but there's still all the other ones that didn't do it. So I am going to box the top 5 in a $1 exacta box for a $20 play.
Okay.
So you take those 5 horses, 3, 6, 12, 15, 16, and that's a $1 exacta box. And we actually, as I said, agree on the exacta.
Yep.
So we just have it in the opposite order. Emily has Epicenter over Messier. I have Messier over Epicenter. Anything else we need to add here?
I don't think so. Like I said, going to be a great race, and looking forward to a great day. As far as weather is concerned, anything we need to be concerned?
I think the Oaks is supposed to be wet. The Derby's supposed to be dry. So we're actually going to have a dry Derby day. Let's keep our fingers crossed.
And how about this? We talked about this a little bit earlier, too. How about just a good old-fashioned horse crosses the finish line and gets the job done?
That's it. The first horse to cross the line wins the Derby and gets the roses, and everybody's happy.
That's right. That? We've had a few interesting Kentucky Derbies, but it certainly does not take away from the main event, if you will. Looking forward to a great Derby, and, of course, hopefully making some money for those folks out there betting the Kentucky Derby.
Absolutely, and we do hope you'll join us here at Harrah's Hoosier Park for the Run for the Roses this coming Saturday. For Emily Gaskin, I'm Michael Chamberlain, wishing the best of luck to you all.